So I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Cath Price from Shropshire Wildlife Trust. Now, your first mental impression when you hear Shropshire Wildlife Trust is green rolling hills, and of course we've got plenty of those beautiful things in Shropshire. But we do also have urban centres, and it's specifically the churchyards in urban centres that Cath is going to be talking about today. So very happy to pass you over to Dr. Cath Price.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Um, I've had a great time preparing this because most of the talks I do aren't about urban spaces, they're about beavers or pollinators or oak trees or something like this. So this has really given me a completely new perspective and back to wandering around graveyards, which is something that I used to do when I was a kid quite a lot, and sort of stopped doing because there were other things to do. But looking closely at them in the last few weeks to prepare this has been a real eye opener. So, United Nations predict that by 2030, 1/10 of the planet will be urbanized. By 2050, the world's population is estimated to reach 9.8 billion. 70% of these are projected to live in urban areas. Currently, more than 8 in 10 of our UK population live in cities. So these are important spaces, living space for people, but people need to have a connection with wildlife for their mental health, for their well-being, and green spaces within cities can really, really help. Churchyards can be an important part of that. The Telford and Wrekin Green Network is Telford, really one of our biggest urban spaces in Shropshire, has 2,500 hectares of green space. 89% of householders live within 300 metres of accessible green space. This is a planned city, if you like. Shropshire Wildlife Trust were involved quite heavily in planning it and making sure that green space was available. So it developed around lots of little villages, all of which had their own churches. So you've got these little pockets of green in amongst the bigger pockets of green, the parks and things that are available for wildlife. The countryside is becoming less welcoming to wildlife. This is typical green arable field. It might as well be green tarmac. You can see no other colour apart from the crop. Barbed wire, big fields. As farming gets more industrialised, it has less space for wildlife. So gradually the countryside is losing its wildlife and it's moving to cities. Since 1950, we've lost 97% of wildflower meadows, 50% of ancient woodlands, 60% of lowland heaths, all this sort of thing. We're losing little bits at a time, and it's almost you don't notice them going. This little bit goes here, that little bit goes there, and then one day you look around and go, what happened? Where's it gone? So preserving spaces that wildlife can use is really, really important. And we can all do this in our everyday lives, in the way we manage things. So this is an interesting example. This is a black redstart, and it's a little kind of robin-sized bird, mostly grey-black. It's got a little bit of white at the back, and then this wonderful red flash under its tail. And these have been breeding in Britain since 1926. And the first one found to be breeding in Britain was at the Wembley Exhibition Centre in London. they only breed in cities. They're quite low populations of them. There's probably less than 100 breeding in the UK, mostly a European bird. But they're breeding in London, in Birmingham, Sheffield, Nottingham, Manchester, these sort of places. And the reason is that not that we don't have the habitat that these birds prefer. They like to nest on scree slopes, rocky places, this sort of thing. It's just that the urban environment provides what we call an analog habitat. So this is a habitat they recognize and use, even though it's not their natural habitat. And they're absolutely amazing things. But what they're looking for is something like this. And this is a bit of green roof at Warwick University. And they absolutely love this sort of thing. It's exactly what they're looking for. There was a big increase in them after World War II in London because the um, bombing provided these analog habitats. So, analog habitat is a habitat that resembles or replaces the habitat they're looking for. And in cities and towns, you can find a lot of habitat that looks just what they're looking for. So it's not that we haven't got the room for them, it's just that we have to make room for them. We haven't got black redstarts in Shropshire yet, but Birmingham's not that far away, so it shouldn't take them too long to find us. Other analogue habitats include buildings, famously occupied by peregrine falcons these days, moving out of the countryside into cities where they think a building, as far as they're concerned, is just the same as a nice cliff. And of course, churches and cathedrals are particularly brilliant because not only is it a big, tall building, big, tall cliff, it's quite often got little fancy bits that they can make nests on, little flat roof bits, this sort of thing. And it's bringing peregrine falcons right into the heart of the city. Plenty of food for them. They really like eating pigeons. Urban pigeons are a perfect food source for them. And they're not bothering anybody. They're living happily on our cathedrals. And we've seen them right out. I'm in Shropshire Wildlife Trust headquarters here in Abbey Foregate. And just over the road, there's the Abbey Church. And I've been doing events in the garden here and been completely distracted by peregrines on the tower of the church. And it's great to be able to point them out to people and say, hey, look, there's a peregrine. And it's sitting on the church plucking a pigeon and the feathers coming down like snowfall. And everybody stops what they're doing and looks through the binoculars and go, oh, wow, I haven't seen one of those for however long. And of course, quite often in the cities, these are somewhere that's, the local wildlife trust or RSPB will set up a telescope so people can have a proper look at them and brings people into contact with one of our apex predators. This is a really, really fantastic piece of wildlife. People go, oh, wow. It's not going, there's a bumblebee, and they're going, yes, I've seen one of those last week. Peregrine falcons are really special. And they're using our buildings. They're safe there. There's lots and lots of prey. They find it easy to access. They can fly right out of the city to feed if they need to. Mostly everything they need is right here. Planted areas, if it's done with a mind to wildlife, can replicate all those wildflower meadows we've lost. Remember, 97% since 1950. This is because old-fashioned haymaking has been replaced by silaging, which cuts several times in the year. Plants don't have a chance to flower. But parks and gardens can replicate it. Churchyards can replicate it, just with a bit of thought to the planting. This is a bridge in part of the Birmingham urban area, and it's been provided with holes which mimic natural holes in riverbanks that the kingfishers are using to breed. The underside of the bridge could be used for bats as well. So a little bit of thought, your urban environment becomes a natural habitat. Even allotments, this is the sort of patchy landscape with all sorts of different, a mosaic of different kinds of growth that's going to really encourage wildlife. And even your supermarket car park, they plant these quite often the mountain ash rowan trees, things with lots of berries on, and quite often not the native species of rowan, which has red berries. And they come in, you get ones with pink berries and white berries to make the car park look nice. And they're an absolute magnet for waxwings. These are a winter migrant. They come in to feed on the fruit, and the typical place to find them is supermarket car parks. So it's just an example of thinking what you plant. So a berry bearing tree like this will provide flowers in the springtime and fruit in the autumn. And just a little bit of thought, if you want to put a tree in somewhere, make it something that's useful for wildlife. Make it part of how you think about what you're going to do. And this is a lovely rough piece of churchyard. Um, it looks a bit wild and woolly, but around old graves, people usually can tolerate that. Obviously, with recent burials, ones that are being currently tended by um, sons, daughters, this sort of family, you want to keep it a bit tidier, but this is a fabulous habitat. It's not a mess, it's a habitat. These are just some things that a friend of mine who lives just down the road here, um, just around the corner from the St. Giles Church, and this is her back garden, which is tiny. It's surrounded by other houses, and this is from her webcam. And she's got badgers, and in the right-hand picture, there's also a hedgehog. It's just down on the bottom right there. She has the hedgehogs visiting regularly. And this is it's not even suburban, this is an urban garden. More and more, I'm hearing from people. I live in the middle of Shrewsbury, and I saw this bird in my garden. I don't know what it is, and it turns out it was a partridge or something like that. Creatures coming into the city, coming into the towns, because the resources they need aren't there in the open countryside. Urban foxes, quite a common theme these days. People sort of either absolutely love them and feed them, or absolutely hate them and complain about them coming through the cat's flap or whatever. Um, but they're part of our urban wildlife. And all these creatures, the badgers, the hedgehogs, the foxes, will quite happily use churchyards, the shelter they find there, the peace they find there. So it's a nice, quiet place. They can raise their young. They can, and obviously, you don't really want badgers digging up graves and things, but I mean, they're part of the natural world that we actually belong to. So instead of going, we have to get rid of them, find a way to live with them. These are the corridors that bring the wildlife into our towns and allow the wildlife to move around. So canal towpaths, bits of overgrowth around canals. This one's the Paisley and Birmingham Canal. Rivers. This is the Welsh Bridge in Shrewsbury, just near here. And this muddy patch you can see sort of to the bottom left, heading towards the bottom left of the picture. Every time I go there, I find otter footprints. The otters are moving up and down the river. Everything else is moving up and down the river and up and down the streams. And this is their way in. So think about um, access for wildlife to move around into the city, around the city. Verges can be important, hedgerows can be important. So think of ways you can connect your churchyard space, your cemetery space to the wider landscape. Maybe just let that hedge grow a little bit more. Encourage that a verge to grow more flowers in it, to grow a bit longer. Encourage the council not to keep everything mown flat. Citizens can play a huge part in influencing the council as how we want things. So don't be afraid to speak up. If you've got a churchyard area that you're looking after for wildlife, and maybe the verge of the road that runs up to it is mown twice a month by the council, tell them no, we don't want that. We want wildlife to be able to move. We want spaces for them to be able to get around. It's really important. Island populations don't work. They need to be able to travel. Lots of specific habitats in churchyards and burial grounds. These old family tombs, mausoleums, things are absolutely fabulous. We don't all have them. These are the big Victorian cemeteries in London, and they're full of these sort of things. And they're covered in ivy. They've got spaces at the inside. You can have bats roosting. You can have birds nesting in little niches on them. Very, very undisturbed spaces. Really, really important for wildlife. So all these little different micro habitats within the churchyard can provide something for some creature to thrive. All that ivy growing on things, you get this absolutely fabulous, really important late flowering. These flower in the autumn, and they're usually covered in red admirals and bees. The butterflies that are going to hibernate, maybe in those mausoleums, are feeding up for the winter. These overwinter as adults. Really, really important plant. And then, of course, come the springtime, when there's not so much available to feed, the berries have ripened. So it's really good for the birds. Don't cut the ivy down. Ivy is really, really, really important for wildlife. So it's a plant that has fabulous um, affinity with churchyards, with graveyards. Plenty of places it can grow. It's not bothering anybody. It's a nice evergreen. It's absolutely perfect. So don't cut down your ivy. Specifically managed places for wildlife. This is on the Longdon Road cemetery here in Shrewsbury, and parts of it are being managed specifically as a meadow. People get involved, they come and help cutting and raking up the growth at the end of summer. One of the important parts of meadow management is that the grass is cut down and removed. So you're not adding nutrition to the ground, you're taking it away, so all those wildflowers aren't outcompeted by the thuggish grasses. So it's not letting it go wild, it's just managing it differently. It's managing it for wildlife. And here it is. This is absolutely fabulous. You've got wonderful area of long grass, which is helping all sorts of things. And we've got these wonderful flowers coming up in it. The bird's foot trefoil you can see here, food plant for the common blue butterfly larvae. Lots of things, wild things, really important for caterpillars to feed on. Obviously, they're not evolved to feed on garden plants, really. So wildflowers are really, really important. So one of the bumblebees feeding on purple vetches. This is a bush vetch, and absolutely loved by the bees. These grow up through all the grasses, things like the bird's foot trefoil, the vetches, vetchlings, all that sort of thing. really, really vital for bees. This is giving them a huge amount of food, which they might not find somewhere else. If the city centre park is planted up with petunias and things, it's not benefiting the bumblebees. These are really important pollinators. You can make space for them in churchyards really, really easily. And the flowers look beautiful. And you've not only got all that wildlife going on, it's a common blue butterfly, you've got um, you've got the sounds of it all around you. You can sit there in the peace of it and hear the buzzing and see the butterflies and the wind in the grasses and feel like you're part of it. You've brought a little bit of wildlife right into the centre of town. It's absolutely lovely spread of wildflowers. There's oxeye daisies, there's all sorts of things popping up in the grass here. These little gravelly spaces, sometimes the old graves have gravel on them, or there's gravel paths or something. They're another habitat. It looks a bit bare here, but these can be places that the increasingly endangered glowworms can thrive. They absolutely love gravelly patches. They feed on snails. The larvae feed on snails, so they tend to like limestoney places, but these sort of rocky areas are absolutely perfect for them. Imagine the dusk walk through the graveyard and you can see the lights of the glowworms round the paths and round those gravel patches of graves. What a magical thing. Slow worms love them. Gives them an open space to bask. Slow worms absolutely love graveyards. You can provide all sorts of places for these to hide out. Big old trees in churchyards. This is St. Peter's Church in Limpsfield. These fabulous big um, yew trees, excuse me, and they're providing year-round cover for the small birds. The goldcrests absolutely love to nest in conifers, little tiny things like coal tits, all there, making their nest somewhere safe, somewhere they're not bothered by people. Um, there's plenty of insects for them. It's yet another habitat that they can use. There aren't woodlands around, but you've got several decent, I mean, whatever kind of big trees you've got in churchyards, they're usually not very bothered. You know, they're not being pruned and managed and cut down and all this sort of thing. Keep your trees. They're really important. If you're thinking about growing another tree, make sure it's something that has fruit on it. So hollies are really good, um, and it has good cover and good nesting places. All small things you can do. Just thinking about what you can do in an everyday way, not going, right, today I'm going to go out and help wildlife. It's just thinking about just small choices. Really good for lichens and mosses. You quite often get very different species growing on north face, south face of church of stones and on the church wall itself. And watch them through the year, you can get all sorts of weird things happening. So it just looks like crusty patches at the moment. But some of the lichens, if you look carefully, they grow like a little champagne, tiny little grey champagne glass, you know, the saucer kind, which has the spores in the middle of it. And you can find these fairy cups. They're absolutely beautiful. And it's all extra bits of wildlife. Things are going to feed on them, things are going to grow on them. Encourage them. Don't scrub them off. Keep them looking like that. This is a tawny owl using the church itself. This is actually a Lutheran church in Germany, because I couldn't find a picture of one in this country. But traditionally, churches have provided a sanctuary for things like barn owls, particularly, and for the tawny owls, normally would be nesting in holes in trees, but a niche in a church tower or something does them just as well. if you've left some of your graveyard with long grass like that, it's going to be full of mice and voles and all sorts of little creatures, and the owl is going to be feeding on those. So you've not just provided a nesting place, you've also got a food source. You've got everything that owl needs to live peacefully, raise its family, and be a beautiful part of God's creation. And just a small thought like not putting a grid over that window or not mowing the grass so you make sure there's plenty of voles has made a space for that owl to thrive. This is the burial ground at Wem on the Whitchurch Road. It's an old meadow, and this area is left as hay meadow, and it's full of things like pig nuts and yellow rattle and things that were traditional meadow flowers. This is basically a hay meadow. It's just got a few gravestones in it, and it's absolutely perfect for wildlife and a beautiful space. So, what can you do specifically? Leave a mess, leave some long grass, leave it a bit untidy. Wildlife doesn't like tidy. One of the important things is not using chemicals. Traditionally, most churchyards, burial grounds don't really use an awful lot of chemicals, but try not using any. If you don't use chemicals, nature will find a balance. If you start using insecticides and things, okay, you kill off the pests, but you also kill off the predators. Generally speaking, the pests bounce back much more quickly, and the predators aren't there to deal with them. So don't lose your nerve. Couple of years, it will balance out. We don't need toxic pesticides in urban spaces. And don't just think about the churchyard, think about council spaces, think about parks, think about verges. Anywhere you can influence somebody not to use chemicals. You don't want to be walking in them and taking them into your house. You don't want them on your pet's feet. You don't want your kids around them. You can pressurize your local council not to use them. France introduced a national legislation banning non-agricultural use of all pesticides from 2020. It has 900 bis sans pesticide, towns without pesticides, including Paris. If you can do it in a city like Paris, we can do it anywhere. We don't need pesticides, herbicides, molluscicides, all those sort of things in our urban environments. We just don't need them. Pesticide Action Network can help, but encourage your schools, your town park, and your churchyard not to tolerate any use of pesticide. It's so unnecessary and it's so damaging. Anything you can do that adds plants, variety of plants for pollinators, for insects and things is worth doing. This is a fabulous green roof space. It's much more difficult to build a green roof on a shed you've already got, I have to admit. But if you're thinking about putting in a new one, maybe you need somewhere to keep the lawnmower or the strimmer, or hopefully the lawnmower that you're not using very much, it's only coming out twice a year. This would be a fabulous thing to do. These green roofs make a wonderful space for pollinators, for other insects, for beetles. And don't forget the black redstart. This is the place they want to nest. So it's a way you can use what would be an ordinary building to make a little bit more of planting, as long as you're very mindful about what you plant isn't going to grow 3 feet tall, and it's going to provide lots of pollen. Again, it's thinking small actions make a big effect. Everything you do, think wildlife. You can provide lots of living space for wildlife within your area. So if you've just had the church roof repaired or something like that, and I know a lot of church roofs in bad need of repair, but if you've taken away nesting sites from things like swifts, it can make a huge effect on the populations of those creatures. So if you've got swifts around, it's always worth putting up some swift boxes. Put them up high. If they're not attracting swifts, you can get recorded swift call that you can play out in the evenings when the swifts are around and looking for a nesting space, and you can make an enormous difference. These birds have been really badly hit by the use of things like plastic soffits and repairs to roofs and things that are taking away their nesting spaces. So think about it. Think about where you can put nesting boxes for things. These are nesting boxes for bees. So bee hotels, insect hotels, and can be anything from a really grand scale thing like on the left here to a bundle of bamboo canes. And these are for solitary bees, things like the red mason bees and the blue mason bees, fabulous pollinators, and they really need that living space. This one on the bottom right is just emerging. This is a brand new bee, never seen the light of day before, and he hatched out, or she hatched out probably, from um, one of those garden canes cut up in sections there. Mother bee, queen bee, lays her eggs in the end of it, blocks it off with, provides a lot of pollen for it to feed on, lays the egg, blocks it off with another bit of mud, lays another egg, provides it with pollen, all that sort of thing. So there's a whole succession of baby bees in each of those, can be in each of those sections of cane. And this one's just dug his way out of the mud and is emerging. The first one out is usually male, and then subsequent ones, the females are laid towards the further end of it. So the males have emerged first. As the females emerge, the males are there ready to mate with them so they can provide a new colony of bees. So nice bee hotel there, full of surrounded by bee-loving plants. This is something you can easily do in the corner of your churchyard, your burial ground. You can provide wonderful little habitats like that. Get the kids involved in building them. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I mean, really, this is a lot of sections of bamboo cane tied together with wire. That's all they need. Or you can do blocks of wood with holes of the right size drilled into them, and bees will use them. This one has the meshing over it, hoping to prevent things like woodpeckers taking the bee grubs before they hatch, which is, again, a good idea. Make it feature, though. Make it something that people come and look at and go, wow, look at that. Get them coming to see the bees. Places for hedgehogs in churchyards can include compost heaps, bits of hedgerow, bits of long grass, and some dead hedging maybe if you're cutting down brash, sticks from trees and things. Don't take them off site, make a nice heap of them, or make a dead hedge of them, and you're providing another habitat. The idea is that more habitats you can have, the more different creatures you'll get. And you've got lots and lots of building blocks within your churchyard to make lots of different habitats. So you're looking at providing a mosaic, you're looking at providing variation, all sorts of things. Important thing with hedgehogs, though, don't forget they need to be able to travel. So if you've got solid walls, provide a hole they can get through. This is in Putney, and it's the Putney Lower Common Cemetery. And they've made these hedgehog highways either side of the graveyard so that the hedgehogs can go in and out as they please. They can range over several square kilometres. They actually travel quite a long way. And yes, they can climb, but they don't really like doing it. So if you've got really good hedgehog habitat in your churchyard, which you should have, make sure they can get in and out without having to sort of cross the road and go through the gate or the sort of up the pavement. They like to be able to stay in cover. So small thing you can do, tiny thing you can do really, and a bit of thought means you've provided a space, a habitat, and an access point for your hedgehogs. Really important thing to do. Water is very important for wildlife. I always say to people say, I want to make a wildlife garden. What can I do? Um, I'll say dig a pond. Digging a pond is the best thing to bring wildlife in. Obviously not practical in a churchyard, really. Um, the one I used to play in when I was a kid had a lovely stream running through it. It was absolutely full of life. But a bird bath can make all the difference. And this would look perfectly at home in a burial ground, in a churchyard. No problem at all. And it provides drinking water and bathing water for all the birds that you've got hopefully nesting in your hedges and your big trees and everything like that. And the blackbird here enjoying a good bath. If you provide water, creatures will come to use it. And it doesn't take a lot of maintenance. It's a bit of, okay, you might have to scrub it out and refill it occasionally, but really it's not hard work. And those birds are going to bless you for it. So you've got all this wildlife coming in your churchyard. And one of the important things to do is to monitor it. So you make sure you know what you've got, you know what's increasing, you know what's decreasing. Um, there's the Women's Institute did a churchyard survey project in the early 1800s, 1900s, sorry, beg your pardon. Wouldn't be much good from the 1800s, would it? 1980s. I'm not very good at numbers. So it's worth looking up to see whether your churchyard was one of the ones covered in this survey. 1980s. Sorry, get it right. They covered things like sort of uses of churchyards for various things, uh, some of the monuments and things, but also the wildlife. So if you can get hold of a survey from the 1980s, you can redo it on the same basis and see how things have changed and see if you've improved it or whether things have been lost. And if things have been lost, what you can do to bring them back again. So 1,400 churchyards were surveyed in that. So there's a good chance that there's one somewhere near you that you can find a survey from then that's been done. Even if it hasn't, it's worth doing one yourself. And this is a 50 centimetre by 50 centimetre frame for a pollinators count. So this is a FIPS survey. You can look it up online. And basically you put your frame down surrounding an area of vegetation that the pollinating insects are going to like. And then you sit there for 10 minutes and you count what pollinators come to it. Don't worry, you don't need to be able to identify them all. All you need to be able to do is say it's a bumblebee, it's a different kind of bee, it's a hoverfly, it's a butterfly, it's a beetle, whatever. But keeping an idea of how many pollinators are using your green space, churchyard, wherever else, your garden maybe, is a really good idea. You can look at it and say, well, last year we did this and we had 80 visitors from 16 different species, but this year we've only got 40 visitors from 10 species. You know something's going wrong. On the other hand, if it's gone the other way, you go, I'm doing something right. So monitoring, very important. This is me getting set to do a bit of monitoring. And here I've got my sweep net for gathering up creatures out of the long grass and everything. A bug pot, my notebook, hand lens, this sort of thing. One of the best things you can take is your phone. 4G phones, brilliant stuff on them. There's a thing, an app called Merlin for identifying birds. Set your phone down, press record, identify by record, and it can just sit there. And at the end of 10 minutes, you come back and you've got a list of birds that it's heard and identified for you. And you could, I did it in my garden this year, sort of early in the morning, and halfway through May. And it could hear birds that I'd never seen in the garden, but they were there singing. It was absolutely brilliant. You can also get apps for identifying stuff. So iNaturalist, OBS Identify, this sort of thing. Take a photo of something, it'll tell you what it is. So if a weird looking beetle, there you go, iNaturalist, it'll tell you what it is. You don't have to be wading through the churchyard with a small trolley with a library of identification books on it. If you're not sure, you can send it to other people. Everybody is really good. There's lots of groups on Facebook and things that you can take a picture of a fungus, you can take a picture of a bird, whatever, and they'll tell you what it is. Fungi in churchyards can be fabulous. This is in St Andrew's churchyard in Welsh Frankton that I've taken this picture. When the grass has been mowed at the end of the summer, and as you go into autumn, it's covered in wax caps. And there's all these little jewels in the grass. There's bright red ones and bright yellow ones and brilliant white ones. And they shine and they look absolutely fantastic. And they're getting increasingly rare. Churchyards are one of the best places to find them. You can get help identifying them, record what you've got. Next year, if you haven't got any, think to yourself, why haven't we got any this year? What happened? New church warden's gone a bit over enthusiastic with the sprays there, whatever. You can change it. You can stop him before he does it really, if you can. But you can, maybe your mowing regime's changed, but you can put things back to how they were. You can keep those habitats going. So this is something anybody can do. You don't have to be a specialist. Get everybody involved. Regular walk round, just what's in flower now. It's going to change through the year. Keep records. You'll have a lovely, lovely archive of wildlife in your churchyard to keep and pass down to the people who come after you. These are spaces which aren't going to get built over. They're not going to disappear. They're going to be there for generations. So you owe it really to the next generations to be able to say, this is what we've got. This is what we did. This is how we improved it. And then this is what came. So get your church youth groups, get the Sunday school, scouts, guides, schools, forest schools involved in helping you, and you can achieve so much. Such a fabulous space and so much you can do. And as you sit there in the peace and quiet of the burial ground, with the buzzing going on and the grasshoppers chipping and the little birds going in and out, and enjoying the peace of it, feeding your soul. And remember that one of the most popular hymns is still All Things Bright and Beautiful. And there they are in the churchyard, waiting to be appreciated. And all you need to do is give them a wee bit of a hand. Just everything you do, think wildlife, what can I do? So always looking to improve it, know what's there, and make it better and better. And if you want to do a bit more for wildlife, you can always join Shropshire Wildlife Trust. We look after over 40 reserves around the county. We give advice to farmers, to anybody who is looking to increase wildlife habitat around them. And yeah, it's what we do. It's what we're here for. And talking to people like yourselves about what you can do and encouraging you to always think every little thing can help look after wildlife. So have a think about it, have a look online, and come to some of our events, and hopefully I'll see you all again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kath. Thank you so much for that, really interesting, wide-ranging webinar. I'd just like you to have a look, if you would, at or I'll pass on to you a conversation that's been going on in the chat between somebody who agreed with the general project that you were talking about not over tidying, but talked about what about wall base and invasive plant species. Somebody else came back to say that they don't use any herbicides, etc., unless on invasives that absolutely need it, and try non-chemical approach first. And
Yeah,
then continued to say they're trying cutting and smothering on heliotrope, and digging out invasives with shallow rhizomes works quite well, and a lot of weeding. And then somebody else said that they provided a hibernculum under the insect hotel with the brownies. So really, this
that's
question about
fabulous.
invasive species and dealing with the thugs. Um, I wonder if you could put your thoughts in on that.
Yeah, I mean, invasive species can always be a problem. Um, Pulling them up, digging them up, keeping mowing them down
Mm,
will certainly. I mean, we're not talking Japanese knotweed here, but you can certainly quash them rather than resorting to. I mean, herbicides really would be the absolute last resort, and hopefully, I mean, obviously, that's what people are trying to do. Pulling stuff up is always the first option. Um, if you can get it before, certainly get it before it seeds, and dispose of it away from the site. I mean, this is something I wouldn't put in a compost heap.
mm,
Bag it, take it to the local council waste. Um, it needs to be, if it's going to be composted, it needs to be composted in big heaps at high temperature, which will kill it
mm,
off.
mm,
So you can dispose of it that way, um, and keep at it. You can actually. I mean, I used to. Who's a vegetable garden? I had terrible bother with horsetail,
mm, mm,
which any vegetable garden, a dreadful thing to get. Um, just keep. I mean, I found after 3 or 4 years, pulling it up every time it showed its head, eventually it dies off. So you can get control of these things as long as you keep at it and encourage people. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a complete project to do it. It's just anybody that's coming in to the churchyard regularly, just pull up a bit of that stuff. Make sure they all know which one it is,
mm.
why you're doing it. Say we want to keep this because it's we take it out because it's invasive. If everybody comes and they just pull up a couple of bits as they go past, eventually it will weaken and be obliterated. Um,
Excuse me. Yes.
the bugs aren't usually too much of a problem. So yeah, just mostly with bugs, leave them be and enjoy them. Make sure you've got plenty of places for things, predatorial bugs, the beetles and things that will eat the other bugs, ladybirds and lacewings and things. Insect hotels providing somewhere for them to overwinter. Kids really enjoy making winter homes for them, and as long as your populations of predatorial insects are reasonable, they'll keep the damaging ones down. Achieving a balance is the important thing.
Right. Yes, understood. So are there any specific habitats, that are specifically suited to the predatorial insects, or is it just that the generic ones are suitable for all
Uh,
insects?
things like ladybirds and lacewings and things like that. Generally speaking, if you've got a good mix of habitats in your green space, they're going to find somewhere to be perfectly happy. Um, One thing that I find people get really het up about is earwigs. Um,
Mm.
I don't know why earwigs seem to be universally disliked. Fantastic creatures. They actually one of the few insects that really look after their children carefully. They lay a clutch of eggs, and then every day Mum Earwig will lick them carefully clean of any fungus or anything. When the little earwigs hatch, she carries them around on her back. She looks after them. She grooms them. They have a really, really sweet family life. They don't go in your ear. They don't bite you, and they're really, really good predators.
Mm.
So things like, they also like chrysanthemums. If you've got chrysanthemums, things growing, earwigs will get in them. They're not doing any harm. They're not eating plants. They're um, eating damaging insects. So anything like that, fast-moving beetles, most of them are um, eating things like aphids and stuff.
Mm.
Uh, This don't find out what they are. Don't get overexcited about them. Let them be. They'll be fine. They're not gonna they're not gonna lay waste to everything. They just get on with their little life in a little habitat somewhere in your churchyard perfectly happily. So just make space for them and enjoy them.
That's a lovely thought. Somebody asked a question about methodology for surveying churchyard, to which somebody else very kindly came back with Church's Count on Nature through Caring for God's Acre. But I wondered if there was anything you talked about surveying and keeping records from year to year. I just wondered if you wanted to expand on that at all. I think that was something people found very interesting.
Yeah, I think if you get as many people involved as you can,
Mm,
um, make sure that people know what you're doing and show them the results so that the wider community, the whole congregation, the people that are visiting the graveyards, the people that are visiting the churchyards, that people know what you're doing and feel they can help and can add to it, and make sure that it's not just a one-off.
mm,
So if you're looking at flowering plants in your graveyard, your churchyard, go regularly through the year because things are changing every 2 weeks at this time of year. One flower will go out of season and into seed, and another one will come into bloom. Um, Butterflies the same, different species at different times of year.
mm,
Obviously, the birds, you get migrants coming in, migrants leaving. So it's not a one-off thing. It's a regular commitment, if you like, but it's something we can all do. Especially with these apps that you get on your phone now. You don't even have to know anything about anything. You sit there with
mm,
your phone with the Merlin app going, enjoying
mm,
the bird song,
mm,
and
mm,
it pops up, you're sitting there, look at the screen and it goes, recording, and you get the sonogram going and it goes, that's a wren. And you look around and go, oh, I haven't seen that. And you can hear it singing. You go, yeah, okay, that's a wren. And then it'll be a robin and a sparrow and different things popping up on your screen all the time.
mm,
And
mm,
before you know what, it's a blackcap. It's a garden warbler. It's something, yeah, I've never seen one of those.
mm,
And you're sitting there in your churchyard, surrounded by birdsong, early in the morning in early May, and you've got all that wonderful song going around. And your phone's doing all the work. Your phone's going, it's a this, it's a that. By the end of it, you've got a list of birds. You've spent 10 minutes sitting there in the peace. You've had a lovely time, and you've got a list of birds that are singing around you. Next week, come back, do it again. Something else has come in. The swifts have arrived. The swallows have arrived. A different migrants come in. So you've got a regular basic list of birds that are appearing.
mhm,
And
mhm,
also talk to people. Other different people who have seen different things. And they can say, somebody might say to you, "Oh, sitting here the other evening. It was quite late, and I just felt like a bit of a walk. I came and sat here, and I noticed bats, and I saw they were coming out of here, and you might not know they were there. Or, I saw lots of chafer beetles or something like that. Talk to people. Everybody has a different little story to
Hmm.
tell about the wildlife they've enjoyed in your little green space,
Hmm.
what little green space, wherever. They'll know something. They'll have noticed something. They might not know what it was. They say, well, I saw something, it looked a bit like this.
Mm.
You might know somebody you could ask or whatever, and but make it a regular effort
Mm.
and
Mm.
keep it.
Interesting.
Maybe at the end of the year, you make a newsletter
Mm.
that goes around to the parish saying, uh, this is our annual or biannual or whatever wildlife newsletter for St. Peter's Church, St. Mary's Church, wherever,
Mm.
whatever burial ground, and let people know. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know
Mm.
what you've achieved. That's
Mm.
the best thing.
Mm.
Say, okay, we've let this bit go, turn into meadow, and these are the things we've seen in it. Isn't that amazing? Don't let them go, well, it looks scruffy. Go, yes, but it's fabulous. We've had common blue butterflies. We've had orange tip butterflies. We've had absolutely fabulous, whatever, moths.
Mm.
We've had all sorts of things. Let them know not only that you're doing it, but what it's achieving.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
everybody likes a good news story. And everybody, unless they're completely brain dead, likes a bit of wildlife. So if you can say, we've done this and we've achieved that, instead of letting people knock you about how it looked. I mean, as long as you've done a few nice pathways through it and stuff, it's going to look fine.
Mm.
And
Mm.
let them
That's
get
interesting.
involved.
So building a community around it. So I just want
Absolutely.
to, we're just about at the end, and I just want to put in another question. There's been a bit of conversation in the chat about um, different recording apps as well. And my colleague Anna has come back to say that our project on iNaturalist also feeds into the National Biodiversity Network, of course. And somebody asked a question about a moth trap. Just wondered if the question was, is
Fabulous
it
thing.
useful? And I just wondered if you had any comments to make on that.
They're absolutely brilliant. They're great fun. They're a brilliant way to get kids involved in things because, basically opening your moth trap in the morning is like all your Christmases came together. You never know what's going to be in it. Get somebody local that has one that knows moths. There's loads of different species of moths. I'm not brilliant on them, um, but there'll be somebody somewhere near you that is a moth enthusiast
Mm.
that has a moth trap, and I'll be happy to come and set it up in um, your churchyard or your cemetery, and you can get up very, very early in the morning and see all these fabulous different kinds of moths. So you can count the day flying ones when you're doing your regular sort of butterfly walk, this sort of thing, take
Yes.
pictures of them, all that sort of thing. But the moth trap is absolutely brilliant. Of course, not only are they beautiful in their own right, they're good pollinators and they're a fantastic food source for bats and things too. So really, really important things. And moth trapping is the best way to get a close look at some of them. Plenty of people are involved in um, sort of local moth groups, butterfly moth groups, this sort of thing. Tap into that expertise.
Mm. Mm.
Get people to come and help you. There's
Mm.
experts all over the county and all sorts of things. So just find the right person and do it and get the kids there because they love it.
That's interesting, and that bears out what somebody else commented in response to this question about a moth trap, which is with that one, don't rely totally on apps. Any app needs to be set to your location, otherwise you may get ridiculous suggestions from the US or Europe. Um,
Yes.
and that's obviously with particularly with moths, and maybe with some of the other species, that
Yeah.
expertise can refine your
Yeah.
results
Yeah.
and confirm
You,
them.
Yeah, you do have to be a little careful with some of the apps. If it's suggesting, when look at what it suggested, look in a book. If it says that this thing
Mm,
only occurs in Mediterranean environments, you know that it's
mm,
probably not.
mm, mm.
It's not the urban heat island element that's allowing it to be there. It's just your things that identified it wrong. If it says it's something ultra rare, it could be something ultra rare, but on the other hand, it's more likely to be something that's a bit less rare. Have a look at one of the other suggestions. So don't take them as absolute gospel, but they're a really useful thing to help you get into identification if you've not done a lot of it before.
Makes it the whole thing less intimidating, I
That's
think.
right. It gives you
Yes,
a starting point, and
yes.
it gets people involved in it that otherwise might feel not able to. So yeah, it can be a really useful thing.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the last in our this year's series of Church's Count on Nature webinars. It's been a fascinating range, and this has been an absolutely wonderful webinar to wrap up the series. Obviously, that we've still got Church's Count on Nature with Love Your Burial Ground Week events going on over this coming weekend. But this wraps up our webinars for this year. So thank you all so much for attending, and thank you, Kath, for another fascinating webinar.
Thank you. I've
Th-
enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.